welcome to the World of Wrestling podcast. I'm Slim. Kyle's not here once again, but whatever. We'll start the podcast off with Raw. Once again, next week we will start it off with New Japan Dominion, which is on right now. So the show starts, Raw, that show, yeah. Raw starts with commentary running down tonight's card before McIntyre comes out. Drew says that last week he let Dolph choose a stipulation for their match at Extreme Rules, the horror show. And tonight Dolph's going to reveal the stipulation. Ziggler then comes out and says he isn't going to reveal it until Extreme Rules, the horror show. Ziggler brings up the fact that Drew was fired. Drew says that he did get fired, and when he came back, he beat Brock in 5 minutes at Mania. Dolph then brings out Heath Slater, who says that they go way back. Slater says that he was so excited for Drew to win the belt at Mania, and because he loves Drew and knows Drew, that because when he was released, Heath was there for him, but he wasn't there for Heath this time. Heath then says he wants Drew to give him a match. Drew says he doesn't want to fight him. Heath pushes and slaps Drew, and Drew says, "You're on." We then get Drew McIntyre versus Heath Slater with Dolph Ziggler. Squash match, Drew wins by pinfall with a Claymore kick in about 10 seconds. Post-match, Slater brawls with Ziggler, and Drew comes back and causes Ziggler to flee. Slater and McIntyre then hug. Backstage interview with Bayley and Sasha next, who ask why would they talk to Sarah Schreiber, who was the interviewer, when they can talk to the world. Asuka shows up and is asked how she plans to deal with them by herself. Asuka says, who says she's all alone. Bayley and Sasha then come out and they talk about how good they are and the fact that they want all the belts and are on all the shows. Asuka interrupts them talking Japanese before saying that they aren't ready for Asuka. Bayley says that Asuka isn't ready for Sasha, and Bayley also says Sasha is ready for anybody Asuka has. Kairi Sane comes out. Then we get Kairi Sane with Asuka versus Sasha Banks with Bayley. It was a good match. Kairi wins by DQ when Bayley attacks her. Post-match, they all brawl and Kairi takes out everyone with an inside elbow. We then look at what happened last week between Rollins, Murphy, Black and Carrillo. Backstage, we see Black in a Ray mask with some metal on him, and Rollins walks up and says, "Ooh, too bad." Backstage, Raiders are having a bowl. Well, they have a bowling ball. Big Show shows up and says that they are fighting Orton. Raiders say that Edge and Christian were like heroes to them growing up, and the segment ends with the Raiders getting chopped by Show and them saying the raid is on, and Show saying good. Give me a sec. There we go. Kevin Owens is out next for the Kevin Owens Show with his guest Seth Rollins. He comes out with Murphy. Rollins says, Rollins asks how Owens is and how his fractured ankle is healing. Owens says that he has a gift for Rollins to commemorate the Mania match that they had. It's a shirt like the one that he was wearing when he beat Rollins at Mania. Rollins then says he's out here to address Ray, and then he challenges Ray to a match at Extreme Rules, the horror show, so he can make Ray a permanent sacrifice. Rollins then says Owens needs Rollins more than Rollins needs Owens, when Rollins tries to recruit him. Rollins also says that maybe Owens needs to join him and fight, because that's what Owens likes to do. For the greater good. The greater good. Ray then comes out and accepts the match at Extreme Rules. Rollins says that's great, but Ray doesn't have a partner. Owens says that he'll be Ray's partner, and the winning team picks the stipulation at Extreme Rules, the horror show, for the match between Ray and Rollins. Rollins accepts, and Murphy attacks Owens. We then get Rollins and Murphy versus Owens and Ray with Dominic. During the match, Black came out to help Ray after Rollins grabbed Dominic. It was a good match. Ray and Owens won by pinfall after Dominic raked Murphy's eyes behind the referee's back, and Ray hit the 619 of the frog splash for the 3. Ray says the stipulation of Extreme Rules, the horror show, is an eye for an eye match, which it has now come out that they're using CGI to show the eye come out. So, somebody's going to be blinded, apparently. We then look at what happened last week between Lashley, MVP, and Cruz. Backstage interview with Lashley and MVP, and Lashley says he broke Cruz, and MVP says that Apollo had a bright future until he disrespected Lashley and MVP. MVP and Lashley are out next to talk about Apollo burning out, and that he disrespected Lashley and himself. MVP also says that he is the new US champ because he's already beaten Cruz and will prove it at Extreme Rules when he beats you again. Extreme Rules, the horror show, I should say. They then reveal a new US championship, and Lashley crowns MVP as the champ. Ricochet and Cedric Alexander come out and say that MVP knows that he needs to earn the title. He needs to earn title opportunities first. And then they say that Cruz will be back real soon, and they brawl with Lashley and MVP. We then get MVP and Lashley versus Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. Good match. Lashley and MVP won by pinfall after Lashley hit a spear on Cedric for the 3. Post-match, Lashley goes to lock in the full Nelson, but Ricochet manages to get Cedric out. Then we have a look at what happened between Angel Garza and Andrade last week. Andrade is backstage when Garza and Vega walk up and say that what happened last week won't happen again. Ric Flair then walks up and says this week they must take out Show. Orton then walks up and says when the time is right, Show is his, and if they screw up, he'll introduce them to the RKO. Orton also says that they all have something in common, being that they're all third-generation superstars. Backstage interview with the Kabuki Warriors next, who say that after Asuka beats Bayley tonight, the Kabuki Warriors will challenge for the tag titles, the women's tag titles. Next up is Big Show and the Viking Raiders versus Randy Orton, Andrade, and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega. During the match, Orton has a go at Garza and tells him to pull his head out his ass or he'll put him in the dirt. Pretty good match. Orton, Andrade, and Garza win by pinfall after hitting the RKO on Eric for the 3. Post-match, Show goes after Orton, who gets out of the ring. I guess that'll be added on Raw this week. Or next week. Whatever. Post-match... Oh, that's right. I already read that. Iconics are backstage, and they say that Billy is going to beat Ruby tonight, and Ruby is a loser. Ruby shows up, calls them dumbasses before she says that she's going to beat Billy. Ruby walks past MVP and Cedric. MVP tries to recruit Cedric. Cedric says no. MVP keeps trying to drive in that Cedric is a sidekick. Orton and Flair are backstage talking when Truth runs into him. He says that for the dirtiest player in the game, Flair cleans up real nice. A little too nice. Then he calls Flair Tozawa. Then he hears Tozawa coming and says 2 Tozawas before running off. Orton stops Tozawa and his ninjas and points them off to the wrong direction. Don't know why. Because now we've got Truth versus Orton on this week's Raw. Next is Ruby Riott versus Billie Kay with Peyton Royce. Pretty much squash match. Billie won by pinfall after hitting a sit-out spinebuster. Bayley and Sasha are backstage and are interviewed and asked what they think about Asuka saying that the Kabuki Warriors will challenge for the women's tag titles next week if she beats Bayley tonight. Sasha accepts the challenge and Bayley says that Asuka is stupid if she thinks she can beat her. Main event time, and it's Bayley with Sasha Banks versus Asuka with Kairi Sane. Nikki Cross is on commentary. During the match, Bayley antagonizes Cross and she gets removed by security. During the match, Sasha goes to get a bottle of water for Bayley, who also throws it in the face of Asuka, and then Cross shows up in the crowd behind them. Banks tries to interfere, gets hit with the interceptor by Sane. Good match. Asuka won by pinfall when she sat down while holding Bayley's legs over her head. We're going to move on to AEW Dark now, which has 8 matches. And the first match of the night is Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard versus Brian Pillman Jr. That, wasn't as good of a match as what I thought it was, but it was still a good match. Spears won by pinfall after hitting the C4. Post-match, Spears hits Pillman with the loaded left hand. From what I've heard, they haven't signed Pillman, but yeah. Then we get Big Swole versus... Right, this is a hard name. I think it's Rachel Chanel, I think. I don't know, it's a weird name. That's what I'm saying. It was an okay match. Swole won by pinfall with Dirty Dancing, then a pump kick. Post-match, Swole talks trash to Britt Baker. Backstage interview next with Darby, with Ali. I read Ali as Alan, so I thought it was Darby. And then it had Dustin written there too, so I got D and A. I went Darby Allin. No, but it's with Ali and Brandy. When they continue to argue, Dustin shows up and tells Ali not to mess with his family. Brandy says she still wants to be a team. We then get Frankie Kazarian versus Luther. Sky and CD came out with Kaz, but went to the back. Decent match. Kaz won by pinfall with a victory roll. After that is Joe Alonzo, Brady Pierce, Tony Donati, and Fabu Andre versus the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers. Pretty good match. The Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers won after hitting Joe Alonzo with a full death with Pentagon doing a powerbomb, and the full death powerbomb is followed up by a double foot stomp from the top rope by Phoenix. Then we get Will Hobbs versus Orange Cassidy with the Best Friends. It was a squash match. Orange won by pinfall after hitting a Superman punch in about 10 seconds. Next is Michael Nakazawa versus Sean Dean. Good match. Nakazawa won after hitting a STO with his G-string over the face of Sean Dean. Post-match, Nakazawa confronts Alex Jabali, who was sitting in the crowd. We then have Scorpio Sky versus Serpentico, which was a pretty good match. Sky won by pinfall after hitting TKO. And main event, and it's Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon with Leva Bates versus the Dark Order, that being Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. On the stage is 3, 4, 5, and 10. During the match, the rest of the Dark Order come down, and 5 gets hit with a book from Leva after she tripped Grayson. The rest of them all got taken out with a senton. Dark Order wins by pinfall after Grayson hits the Nightfall on Avalon for the 3. Uno was getting looked at by the Doc, but came back in the ring for the celebration. Moving on to AEW Dynamite. And this week's Dynamite is night 2 of Fyter Fest. The show starts with Hangman and Omega defending the AEW World Tag Team Championships against Private Party with Matt Hardy. Really good match. Hangman and Omega won by pinfall after hitting the last call on Cassidy for the 3 count. Every time I read that, I think orange, but it's not, it's Isaiah. Next up is Lance Archer with Jake Roberts versus Joey Janela with Sonny Kiss. Shit. Before the match, Archer comes out with a beaten and battered Sonny Kiss, and he and Janela brawl before the bell, which never actually rang. But yeah, I don't know. They must have forgot to ring it, because they rang it to say that the match was over. They didn't ring it to say the match had began. Sonny got involved multiple times, but in the end, it was a good match. Archer won by pinfall after hitting the blackout through a table on the outside that Janela set up. Right, here we go. Darby Darby Allin, has another video where he calls Cage out and is with Travis Pastrana and does a coffin drop at Pastrana Land. Taz and Cage come out and are interviewed by Schiavone. Taz says that next week Cage will become the new AEW World Champ, but since that should have happened this week, he's also going to... Cage is also going to walk into that match as champion. And he says that the FTW Championship now belongs to Brian Cage. The FTW Championship is some renegade shit. He says that a couple of times. And who better than the Machine to hold the belt? Also, since we're talking about Schiavone, we did. Every week, Britt Baker's sending them notes, so I'm not going to mention it, but it happens every week, so whatever. Then we had the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers versus FTR and the Young Bucks. Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade arrive in FTR's truck. Really, really good match. Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade win by pinfall after Matt Jackson nails Dax with a super kick, allowing the Lucha Brothers to hit the... allowing the Lucha Brothers to hit the OP driver on Matt, with Pentagon getting the pin. I thought it was meant to say a top rope thing, and then I read it properly. No, the OP driver. Right. Post-match, FTR and Young Bucks shake hands. Swole is then trying to enter the building, and she is served a suspension for kidnapping and harassing Britt Baker. We then get Nyla Rose versus Kylan King and Kenzie Page. Squash match. Nyla wins by pinfall with the Beast Bomb on Page on top of King, and pins both of them at the same time. Post-match, Nyla says she's got herself a manager. Managers in AEW have a track record of getting their clients' titles, and one day soon she will get the women's title back. We then get told that Colt Cabana is injured but can compete. Brody Lee comes in and says that they will find who injured him because he was all bruised up along the side. They're going to find out who did it, deal with them, but they have a match, so Colt needs to get ready. Colt says, "Okay, Mr. Brody," and leaves. Then we get Dark Order being Colt Cabana, Mr. Brody Lee, and Stu Grayson, with Eva Luno, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Ellen Angels, and 10, which is Preston Vance. So technically on the stage this time is 1, 3, 4, 5, and 10. Dark Order wins... Oh, that's right. They're versing SCU. Dark Order wins by pinfall after Colt breaks up a pin and Christopher Daniels punches Colt in the face. And while the ref checks on Colt, Brody hits the discus clothesline. Then he orders Grayson to tag Colt in to pick up the 3. Then we run down next week's Fight for the Fallen card, which only has 4 matches at this point. I guess they'll add some more on BTE and Dark. That's what I was looking for. Smolder gets in to the building and has a go at Britt, who accidentally gets hit by Reba and thinks she has a broken nose. Main event time, and it's Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho with Floyd and Proud and Powerful, who have bottles of orange juice with them. Orange sends best friends to the back during his entrance. He came out first. During the match, Ortiz uses the Mad Ball behind the referee's back. Jericho uses one of Leva Bates' book to attack Orange during the match. Never mind. Right. Aubrey kicks the rope when Jericho uses it. Well, he refuses to let it go on the 3rd time he uses it while applying a abdominal stretch. Orange hits a big super kick after doing the soft shin kicks that he does. You know, the soft, slow ones. And then as he was lining up for the soft super kick, he hit a big proper one. Toward the end of the match, Santana throws orange juice in the face of Cassidy. Best friends come out, take out Proud and Powerful. Then Jericho uses Floyd and hits the code breaker for a 2. Really good match. Jericho wins by pinfall after hitting the Judas effect from out of nowhere for a 3 count. We'll move on to NXT now. And NXT this week starts with a recap of what happened last week, because this is night 2 of the Great American Bash. We then get a hype package for what's happening on this week's episode. The show kicks off with a street fight between Candice LeRae and Mia Yim. As Candice makes her entrance, she is blindsided by Yim. Good match. Candice won by pinfall after hitting a swinging neck breaker from the top of a table that was positioned on top of the top turnbuckle. She hit that onto a stack of chairs below. As they landed, Candice's arm was over the top of Yim, which gave her the pin. Throughout the night, we get legends and superstars weighing in on who they think will win between Keith Lee and Adam Cole. We then see what caused the next match, which is Bronson Reed versus Tony Nese. Decent match. Reed won by pinfall after hitting a diving splash for a 3. Robert Stone and Leah then try to recruit Shotzi Blackheart, who declines, and Stone throws his drink on Killian Dane, who beats him up. Then Shotzi parks her tank on his leg. We then get Swerve vs Gargano. Pretty good match. Gargano won by pinfall after hitting the one final beat DDT. We then get a video package to hype Io Shirai vs Tegan Nox, which is next week, I believe. Next is Legado del Fantasma vs Breezango and Drake Maverick. Pretty good match. Legado del Fantasma won by pinfall after Escobar hit the Phantom Driver on Maverick for the 3. Backstage interview with Candice and Gargano, and they talk about being the greatest power couple in the universe, and they have some issues they need to take care of. Then we have Santana Garrett versus Mercedes Martinez in a decent match. Mercedes was obviously going to win that, and she did with a Fisherman's Buster. We then get a video package with Priest saying next week he'll face Grimes and prove that Grimes is a bitch. Main event time, and it's Adam Cole, baby, defending his NXT Championship against North American Champion Keith Lee in a winner-takes-all match, so Lee's title was also on the line. Really good match. Lee won by pinfall after hitting the Big Bang Catastrophe for the 3 count and to capture the NXT Championship and retain his North American Championship. Post-match, Lee gets a confetti shower and Scarlett and Karrion Kross are shown looking on from a skybox sort of thing. It seems like a skybox. But yeah, we'll move on to NXT UK. And this week's NXT UK has more NXT UK superstars picking their favourite matches. Same as every other week. Moving on to SmackDown. And this week's SmackDown starts with Miz TV. Miz and Morrison have their special guest, and it's Jeff Hardy, obviously. Miz and Morrison show a clip detailing the struggles and failures of Jeff Hardy over the rivalry, that's what I was trying to say, with Sheamus. Oh, that's better. They ask Jeff if he's okay, and he says that he is, but Sheamus is under his skin. Jeff also says that he will be a beacon of hope for everyone, especially those who battle addiction. Miz and Morrison say Jeff needs to fight Sheamus in a bar because then he's fighting both his physical and mental enemies. Jeff accepts and says he won't let anyone down again. Jeff then challenges either Miz or Morrison to a match before attacking both. It was a great segment. It was funny as old shit, and it was just a great segment. Definitely go and watch it, even if you don't watch the rest of it, which I wouldn't blame you. I mean, probably watch the match that comes after it, because it's Jeff versus The Miz with John Morrison. Toward the end of the match, Sheamus shows up on the Tron to distract Jeff, and as the Miz goes for a roll up, Jeff reverses it into a stack and pins the Miz. Sheamus congratulates Jeff. Yeah, it was a pretty good match. Backstage interview with Cesaro and Nakamura. Cesaro says that he is sick of the way that the New Day and he's sick of the New Day, and Nakamura says that they're going to have new SmackDown SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Next is Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. During Bayley and Banks' entrance, Cross attacks Bayley and Bliss comes down to even the odds. During the match, Nikki Cross takes the SmackDown Women's title and poses with it. Bayley and Sasha win by pinfall when Bayley rolls Cross up and uses the ropes to get the 3, even though she was, once again, too far away from the ropes to actually use them. Every time she tries to use the rope, she's always 2 inches too far away, and it just looks stupid. Then we get the Money in the Bank match between Braun and Bray. Backstage interview with the New Day next, and they say that they know who Cesaro and Nakamura are, and tonight they're going to retain their tag titles. We get Karaoke Showdown next between Naomi, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Tamina. During the night, we saw Naomi, Lacey, Dana practicing. Jey Uso is hosting the Karaoke Showdown, and the contestants need to sing WWE theme songs. Lacey Evans is first and sings My Baby Tonight by Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie. Dana Brooke is next, sings Honky Tonk Man's theme song. Tamina's after that and sings Triple H's theme. Naomi is last and sings Dusty Rhodes' theme. Naomi wins. Lacey attacks Naomi and the two brawl while Jay tries to hold them both back. Shit segment. Don't watch it. We then get Lacey versus Naomi. Tamina and Dana are at ringside. During the match, Dana and Tamina get shoved by Lacey and they all start brawling. Then it goes to break and nothing. Backstage interview with AJ Styles next, who says that if the caliber of opponents he has to face is on the level of Gulak, then he will keep the Intercontinental Championship for a long time. Styles then gets upset when he's told that next week he'll defend the IC title against Matt Riddle. Styles also says that he'll beat Riddle. Main event time, and it's the New Day defending their SmackDown Tag Team Championships against Cesaro and Nakamura. Good match. The match ended with a double DQ when everyone started brawling. Post-match, Cesaro gets a table. They put New Day through it when they powerbombed Kofi on top of Big E from the top rope. E was was already on the table. We'll move on to 205 Live, and on this week's 205 Live, Corey Graves was back on commentary. The show then starts with Mansoor vs Tahuti Miles, which was a pretty good match. Mansoor won by pinfall after hitting a one-winged angel sort of thing, but instead of going forward, he sort of did a Murphy's Law sort of thing. We then look at what happened on NXT between Legado del Fantasma and Drake Maverick and Breezango. Main event time, and it's Oney Lorcan vs Santos Escobar with Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde. Pretty good match. Escobar won by pinfall after hitting the Phantom Driver. And now we'll move on to the New Japan Cup. And it's the finals of the New Japan Cup, where Evil beat Kazuchika Okada and will take on Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP Intercontinental Championship at Dominion tonight. That will kick off next week's podcast because I will watch it. And yeah, I might wait until English commentary's out though. If not, it'll sort of just be a sort of just how this one is, where I'll just say who won each match. But yeah, other than that, that has been what happened in this week of wrestling. Next week, like I said, we will have a recap of Dominion, along with everything else. We will also have Impact Slammiversary predictions and WWE Extreme Rules, the horror show. They will have predictions. They'll be out, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday night. And I think for Extreme Rules, the horror show, we're going to have one or two guests. Not Seth or Asian, unless they decide that they want to do it now. When I asked them, they said nah. So I don't know, but it'll be. I know that we've definitely got one guest coming, unless he pulls out. So other than that, thanks for watching. Goodbye and good night.